to order Wednesday, March 18th at 5:05 p.m. Order of business, number one is called to order. Number two is declarations of conflict of interest. Do I have any conflict of interest? So not seeing any. No. Number three, approval of agenda. So moved by Councillor Bernard, seconded by Deputy Mayor Yankoff. Number four, approval of previous draft minutes, March 16, 2026. Moved by Councillor Bernard, seconded by Deputy Mayor Yankoff. And number five, business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from the minutes of March 16th, 2026? Not seeing any. Thank you. So we'll go right to number five, discussions, reports. The 2026-2027 operational budget review draft here, discussion being presented by Amy McQuillan, our finance manager, in support with assistant manager Isaac Ewa. So we'll turn it over to Amy and start the process of the reviewing of the operational budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mayor, Councillors, Chair. I'm going to start with an overview of the budget for 2026. In your document, you have that also showing the 2025-2026 budget that was approved last year, as well as our forecast for the remainder of this fiscal year for 2025-26. There's also going to be a discussion of new initiatives, which are built into the budget document with a different total. So I'll go through the budget as it stands now before we start talking about new initiatives. Happy to take any questions at any time.
So just before you, Chair, Amy, just before you get started, so I'm clear. So when you say you're discussing on new initiatives, did I hear you correct? Did you say the new initiatives are incorporated in this budget, or are they a separate item still? The funding for them?
To the Chair, to Councillor Bernard. In column H, I believe it should be in your document, where it says 2026-2027 budget. Yep. That does not include any of the new initiatives. But further over to the right, there's a revised total with the initiatives built in. So we can see the financial impact of the initiatives that we're proposing.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yep. My other question before we get started was, I'm just curious, the 26-27 budget for property tax is 52.9, so almost 53 million. Forecast was 49.5, budgeted was 48.7. Do we know what the actual figure was at the end of 25-26 budget? What the property tax came in at? Is it the 49,588 or the 48,781?
To the Chair, through to Councillor Bernard. The forecast has updated as of now with the information from the provincial website. I believe the difference is the budget, there was an increased number of properties, but the forecast shows an increased assessment value. But the budget for 26-27 is incorporating also an increased assessment value as well as an increased rate. That is the jump year over year.
Okay, so the 52.9 is a pretty confident figure.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
The 52,916,000 is a pretty confident figure? That came from the provincial government?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So do we know at the end of this taxation year how much property tax we brought in? We have budgeted 48 million and we have forecast 49. I'm just wondering, do we know what that final figure was?
To the Chair, through to Councillor Bernard. According to the provincial website, it should be that 49,588. That's what they have listed now. If there's any changes between now and the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just for clarification, Mr. Chair. So the forecast is actually the actual, but is that until, we don't know if it's until the end of February, because the payments, I think, are the payments from the province on quarterly basis? I don't think it's on monthly basis. It's on quarterly basis. Is that correct? Amy, maybe it's too new where you're,
It's on monthly.
it is on monthly. So you'll have another, by the end of this month, you'll have another payment. And right now you're at 49 million up until the end of February, correct?
The 49,588, that is incorporates what we're anticipating for the month of March as well.
So everything's included in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But right year end, okay.
Now, if there's any changes to that March payment based on what we receive year to date, then that's not reflected in that forecast.
Okay.
Okay, no, it'd be close enough. Okay.
And Amy, just so I'm clear, I guess, still on the point of 25, 26, the 49,588 is a reflection of an increased assessed value and more units?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It would be an increased assessed value when we do the budget. We don't have the assessed values for the upcoming year, so we just estimate what that increase is going to be year over year. So it's actually higher than what we had budgeted last year, as well as the number of units.
Thank you for that. And with that, we'll let you continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So just starting with our revenue for our budget, we've already discussed property taxes. Our provincial grant, that is also tied to our property tax with our mutual funding agreement. The rate for that is actually going up from 63 cents to 65 cents. So that's what that jump is, as well as tied to the assessment value, et cetera, that with the property taxes. Planning revenues going down slightly from budget, but up over forecast. I believe that's just due to the lower than expected number of permits. Parkades revenue is staying the same. Police revenue is just going down slightly versus forecast, or budget and forecast, mainly because we're seeing a lower trend with regards to parking tickets, speeding tickets, violations in general, which I mean is a good thing. We're seeing better compliance. So economic development, tourism, the increase in that year over year, that's the tourism levy. So that's actually just an in and an out, but it is an increase in revenue showing there, offset to the expenses below. Parks and Recreation, this is increased fees and revenue from the various parks and arenas. The Municipal Capture Expenditure Grant, that is the 10% back we get on capital. So obviously, we're seeing an increase in our capital spend year over year. So we're expecting an increase in the grant to offset that. And other revenue, the big jump in other revenue is actually coming from economic sustainability and transit, and has to do with the transit fares. So year over year, we're looking at a budget of revenue of $98,999,558 versus what we're expecting to finish the year of $89,966,764. That works out to be about a 10% increase over our forecast, as well as a 10% increase over our budget of this current fiscal. If there's no questions on revenue, I'll keep going to expenses.
Just want to go back to where you spoke about revenue for T3 transit. Where did you bring that up under? Parks, Recreation, Municipal Capital Expenditure Grant? Or is that other revenue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to the chair through to Mr. Mayor. The other revenue is kind of a catch-all of various different things, but the big jump is coming from, like I said, environment, transit, and sustainability. There's not much I can offer more context other than under their transit subdivision, they have listed an increase of revenue of $2.15 million. That is also, by the looks of it, offset by their transit contract. So I'm assuming it's a funding that they're getting to do the restructuring of the transit system. It's an in and an out, so similar to the other items with the tourism levy. It's showing higher revenue, but there's also higher expenses to offset that.
No, the town, the tourism accommodation levy, we collected, I think it's going up to 4% per room, per STR. And then we transfer that to SURF and charge administration fee. For the transit, it's going to be, I think, based on the fares, transit fares. And if I look at this, environment sustainability under expenses, and I know you're going to go to that, for 25, 26, we budgeted 4.2, 4.3 million. For 26, 27, we're looking at 6.8 million. But the revised total you have now is about 7.4 million. Is that correct? Like, we're not going to take the fare box anymore. No, T3 is not going to use the fare box as part of their subsidy for providing the service, because if you look at last year's budget for transit, I think it was 2.8 million. But they took as I said, they would take the transit fare.
Yeah, Chair, if I could just weigh in there. So those forecasts are based on the negotiation of the transit contract and a change in the business. Historically, that T3 Transit collected the fare box, and we paid a service fee. With the proposed changes to the agreement, that would reverse. We would collect the fare box and pay them a service fee.
Understood there, CAO Brad, but our transit contract was for 25, 26, 2.8 million. Now that we're going to be taking the fare box, that means we'll be paying the transit provider, Trias, a fee per hour. And if you looked at the fee per hour for the services that were provided under this one, under last year and previous contracts, it was lower. So I just think that, it's, right now it's at $2 per fare. So it's consistent with I call it the Denny fare. Anywhere in Prince Edward Island, you can go for $2. We can make projections. I think we're making projections that we're going to take in about do you have that number, what we're going to be taking in? I think they said 1.8 million in for the transit fares?
For the fare box, Your Worship?
Yeah.
Amy, you have that sheet up there. I think that's close to, yeah.
Yeah, so that's at $2. I think that the current transit providers always made it very clear that it's an entrepreneurial model, and that entrepreneurial model is based on make it affordable. So as soon as you start raising the fare, then that affects your customer base. Anyways, again, it's a huge increase. It's going from 4.2 million to 7.4, and most of that increase will be correct me if I'm wrong, for transit. Is that right?
That is correct, Your Worship.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
okay. I just had a couple of quick questions, Amy. One of them was, under other revenue, the new initiatives, 79,000. Do you know offhand what that's for? Do you know offhand what that new initiative's for, the 79,000, under other revenue?
The new initiatives, the 79,000?
Yes.
We're going to get to that. That's part of the new initiatives tab that we're proposing to add into the budget.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can ignore that now. That won't make any sense now, but it will later on.
Okay, and my last question wasn't just a continuation what the mayor was asking. So we're not raising the fares of transit that I know of, correct? But this doesn't have an increase in the fares for transit.
That is correct. There's
This
no,
is the fare box being included.
that's correct.
Okay.
We're extending our service.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And just to follow up, I'm just pulling the information from Environment and Sustainability in Transit, just if they have any information in their book, and it says that the 2.15 that's reflected in their revenue is the proposed service agreement, not retaining transit fare revenue, as the CAO had said.
Sorry, repeat that. What was it?
The 2.15 increase in the revenue is coming from transit, which is the proposed transit service agreement, where municipalities are now retaining transit fare revenue.
But I keep repeating that we have a triple P. It's a private-public partnership. So to compare it with other transit providers, I think when I asked the question at the Standing Committee for Environment Sustainability, there wouldn't be too many triple Ps in the country. You know, we're one of few, like, I think there might be 15. So I was asking for a comparative analysis with those triple Ps, because that's what we are. Like, if we're moving towards a complete public transit system, owned, operated, maintained by the city, that's not the track I'm going down. I'm going down working with our partners in the community, working with our partners to the east, Stratford, to the west, Cornwall, making this, ensuring that we keep a capital area transit commission or coordinating committee in place so that we provide a service for the whole capital area, which is a, larger population too.
Chair, if I could just weigh into that too, I can certainly assure council that we have no intentions to deviate from the current model. It's working well, and we look forward to things to come with our service provider.
If there's no other questions, I'll keep going on to operating expenses. Okay. So looking at the city government, which is the CAO's office, communications, as well as IT, we're going down slightly from forecast, but up over budget. And that's mainly just due to the timing of hiring current vacant positions. So year over year, we're looking at a 5% increase. Environment and sustainability, we've already touched on. They're jumping to 6.831 million, up from 4.294 of our forecast and 4.255 from a budget. Again, that's got the increased expenses with the transit contract, as well as we factored in all departments, a 7% increase for electricity rates, as well as a 10% increase for increased fuel rates. So that's reflected in all the various departments, but it's the same rate across the board. Economic development and tourism, that's up slightly to 5.822 from 5.233. That's got to do with, again, increased amount for the tourism levy. That's an in and out. It's offset from the revenue above, as well as some additional increases for conferences due to the location of the annual conferences each year. Finance, audit, and fiscal services, up to 27.357. Oh, sorry.
I thought, Amy, when we did our operational budget, we were only up 200,000 over last year in our ask. This is showing up to 600,000. Am I missing something? We had pretty well status quo budget. It was only a $200,000 increase. It was 225 at our first look, and we reduced that by 25,000. This is showing me of 600,000. Do you have the breakdown? Because I think I would have that budget. Economic Development, Tourism, and Agriculture. No, the one that we presented through our committee this year. I was sure we were only up a couple hundred thousand.
Amy, while Council Bernard's looking for that, do we have a copy of all the operational budgets in our OneDrive for easy access? Not that I want to question them, but just for us to have them?
To the chair through to Councillor Giankov. Not yet. Unfortunately, I don't have them all formatted. They're quite messy right now. So I apologize. Yeah, you're kind of getting this blind, but I do have that level of detail on my computer if you have any questions.
We'll have those, though, for when we do final approval tomorrow evening with the city council?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Yep, no problem. Thank you.
I'm sorry, to the chair, back to Councillor Bernard. What number were you referring to?
Economic Development Tourism for our operational budget, going from a forecast of 5.2 million to 5.8. My recollection was when we did the operational budget in our committee, we were only up 200,000. So if our previous budget was 5.2, it should be 5.4.
To the chair through to Councillor Bernard. You are correct. They are only up 200,000, but the other the offsetting is the tourism levy. So we increase the revenue, but it's an in and an out. So there's an increase in the expense for the levy as well.
Yeah. I think what we're saying,
So
Amy, is,
we're up to 200,000. You're saying it's the in and out for the levy that brings that up to 5.8. If I get that correct.
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Revenue, it's under other revenue, correct? So that's why we don't see the in, but we see the out. Yeah.
That is correct.
yeah, and maybe for tomorrow night, that, yeah, we could just have that maybe carved out in the same line, like, just to, so it's not as confusing or whatever. More clear, I guess, better way to say it.
Yeah, perfect, Chair. I think it's important to show that, you're not jumping up $400,000, you're jumping up a couple hundred, and here's the difference for the 5.2 to 5.8.
Yeah, and when I present tomorrow, the information we'll have it broken down with each level of expense as well. So you'll know exactly where those increases are. So if you have any other questions, so this was just high level for the sake of time.
Right on.
But you will definitely have a formatted sheet that has all that detail.
Thanks, Amy.
If there's no other questions, I will keep going. Okay. So finance and audit fiscal services, jumping 2.7, 27.357, up from 24.753 and a budget of 25.787. That's largely due to the interest and depreciation. There's also some increase in there for just overall operational expenses, but the bulk of what it is those two non-cash items. Fire is is only going up over last year's budget by about $25,000. They're currently trending below forecast, mainly due to salaries. So they're projecting 6.472 versus a forecast of 6.055. Human resources, slight increase there. Budget of 1.579 versus a current of 1.493. That jump is mainly due to our payroll software, and there's some additional legal fees in there for pending contracts that are coming up for negotiations. Mayor and council, it looks like 830,000.
John?
Your forecast is 860 versus a budget of 880. There's some underspend in there, but there is some increase in the pay. It's also split between water and sewer. We take 75%, water and sewer takes the other 25. Parks and Recreation, 5.97, up from 5.452 for forecast and 5.474 for budget. Again, that's just adding in the additional fuel, electric, maintenance costs, et cetera. Planning, 3.074, up from 2.526 forecast, versus a budget of 3.278. That one there, I'm just going to pull up.
Johnny?
That one there is a decrease in salaries. I believe it's a timing issue, but there's also an allocation between how we split planning, revenue, heritage, and inspection.
Excuse me, Amy, just.
Sure.
Council Bernard had a question, just
Just a quick question, Amy. It was back under your finance audit and fiscal services. In that budget, did you guys add for your software upgrades to bring you up to date in the software? Has that been included in this number?
I'm sorry, like the accounting software?
Yes.
No, it is not. That will be incorporated in next year's budget because we're looking at least a 12 to 18 month turnaround time. So if anything, we'll have to pay a deposit, which the deposit won't be reflected in the expenses until the product goes live.
Okay, so in other words, you would order it, put a deposit in, but you don't pay for it till the next budget?
Until it's active, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
But when we had the latest discussion with the company that currently operates or maintains our GP, Great Plains, like I said, we're looking at a 12 to 18 month before they can even start our initiation. So it won't be this fiscal, it'll be next fiscal.
Okay, thank you.
Now on to the police budget. We're looking at 15.64 million for 26-27 versus a forecast of 15.423 and a budget of 15.932. The main difference in that is, again, timing with hiring. They currently have various vacant positions. So that explains the lower forecast numbers versus the original budget, as well as factoring in the potential hiring times for these positions into the new year. Public Works and Municipal Buildings.
Amy, I'm just gonna question that one. So the lower numbers because of hiring that hasn't been done yet, open vacant positions, correct? Are we not gonna fill those vacant positions?
To the chair through to Councilor Bernard. No, the intent is to fill them. It's just the timing of realistically, we're not going to have anybody in place. We don't have anybody in them now, and they're not going to be in place for April 1. So we just kind of adjusted the hiring dates to reflect that. That is probably going to be more of a staggered approach, getting these people into positions. Certain positions that are a priority, such as the chief of police, that's a full year. With other ones being realistic that, like I said, no one's going to be in place for April 1.
Okay, so it's been taken into consideration to pay those salaries when they come in place. The salary dollars are there when they take in place.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So the salary dollars are here whenever those positions are filled. What you're saying is it may take 6 months to fill it or whatever. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions before I move on?
Yeah, no, just a comment to circle back to finance audit and fiscal services. So tomorrow night for council, you'll have at the ready or breakout if asked, or maybe we'll share it anyway. Off that 28.8, we'll have what the depreciation is and what the interest and long-term debt is as an example to. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think you were just to Public Works there, I think was where you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Public Works Municipal, we are looking at a budget of 21.026 versus a forecast of 18.99 and a budget of 20.54. Again, there's some vacant positions in that department, ongoing recruitment, which is explaining the lower forecast. We also had to factor in, again, the higher fuel, higher electric, more supplies needed for street resurfacing, all of that. That was captured in capital, but there's obviously some operational costs tied to those capital projects. So we're looking at a total operating expenditure of 99.43 versus a forecast of 89.969 and a budget of 94.045, giving us a projected deficit in our budget next year for the city section of 433,292. Right now, we're forecasting basically right on matching of just a short deficit of 2,800 versus an original budgeted deficit of 615. Any questions before I move into water and sewer? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. So just to go back to mayor and council, the stipends for mayor and council come out of this budget, correct?
That is correct.
Which is about 412,000, I think, for the year, maybe a little more. You have that number there? And you know, it's probably half of it. I'm not looking, I know my book is right there, my budget book, but the forecast is 860, so why would we reduce it to 830?
So, great question. Thank you to the chair through to Mr. Mayor.
And you're gonna give me a great answer?
Yeah. So you're correct. Your stipend has actually gone up. It's some of the other expenses that have actually gone down. In your, so when we did the budget, we're looking at what the forecast was for the rest of the year and the budget. So when I talked to your office, it basically said, like, with the exceptions of your stipends going up, everything else would be status quo. So they kind of just off, it looks like you're going down, but it's really just your other expenses that have gone down, not your
Those
stipends.
expenses go up this year.
That would be like meeting expenses, staff development, professional
No,
services.
I understand that. So if they
Yep.
go up, then they could actually go over the 830, so.
That is
why-
correct.
Why wouldn't we just keep it at the 860 for the forecast?
I was just told that it was status quo from forecast and that the stipends went up, but we can, maybe I misunderstood that.
No.
Chair, yeah, I think I'm with the mayor on this one. I think we should adjust that just to be reflective.
Yeah, the only reason I ask that, make that request, because the forecast is 860. The forecast wasn't 830, and I know what you're saying, that some of the expenses did go down. Not on the salary benefits ledger, but more on the events and sponsorships and promotions. So, yeah, I would just at least try to keep it at the 860 of what was spent this year on 25, 26. Yeah,
To the chair through to his worship, that's no problem at all. I can easily make that change.
okay. Thank you.
And I will make that change when you can see that change when I send out the full budget book for you guys to have.
Yeah.
But I'll make note of that now.
Okay, and Amy, I know you're probably going to get into it, might be down a little lower, but our surplus for last year, that'll be carried in when we get down to the bottom, correct? The surplus that we had, and same with water and wastewater, there was a surplus there, so you're coming to that. Thank you.
So if no other questions, I'll move into water and sewer. So water and sewer, we're looking to grow our revenue up to 17.017 million for 2026, 2027 year. That's going to be offset with expenses of just slightly over the revenue of 17,034,000, giving us a small deficit in water and sewer of just short of 17,000. With the forecast, however, for 2025-26, we're looking at higher revenues than originally budgeted of 16.144 versus a budget of 16.052. The main difference is obviously our expenses due to the strike. So we're looking at a forecast of expenses of 13.831 versus an original budget of 16.33, which is now giving us a surplus in water and sewer of 2.313. We do have a small carry forward from last year of 96,465, giving us a surplus of, for ending the year, projected this year, with a surplus of 2.406 combined city and water.
So you've got a bunch of figures going on there that we don't have here then.
Page 6 or 7.
Yep.
I'm on page 6 or 7, yep. Yeah. The consolidated, yeah, just on that, if, while Councillor Bernard is hopefully reconciling where we are here, Amy, just on the water and sewer, in anticipation of the question that may come to council, I think it was brought up at maybe a meeting earlier, one of the councillors asking on the water and sewer strike, with the wages, the amount of time they were out, is there a way from what we're looking at here to get a rough idea what the whatever I would call it, savings or less wages that went out because of that? Can that be quantified somewhat or approximately?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. When we go to discuss this with council, we'll make sure we have a detailed breakdown of where all the savings were, and specifically savings in salaries and benefits. Yeah.
So Amy, just so I can go over the water and sewer numbers again, because either I lost track of you were rhyming off some numbers that I didn't see here. So the revenue was $16,052,000. The expenses were $16,333,000 for a deficit of $280,000. So the forecast, you got 2.3 million, and the budget is 16,000 deficit. And then you were saying there was extra revenue coming in, or? Can you go over that again, the water and sewer?
To the chair through to Councillor Bernard, are you referring to the difference from 26-27 budget versus forecast?
Yep.
I believe it'd be, I can't speak to that level of detail. I just know it's increased. So whether that's a price increase or it's the number of units, it could be a combination of both. But I can make sure that we have that information going through to council.
No, it's kind of, there was some of the figures you were rhyming off there, and I didn't see them here, and I'm trying to, so,
I do have another breakdown here. So it looks like the water and sewer revenue is expected to increase about just short of $1 million. There's sludge handling fees that's supposed to go up. Public fire protection's also going up. And the allocation of the expenditure grant is going up.
yeah, and it may be maybe some of the sheets that she has, that she's naming off, I didn't see them here. So at the end of the day, Amy, then it looks like the budgeting is for 2.392? The 26-27?
That is correct.
Okay.
So when combined with the deficit of 433,292 from the city, we're looking at a surplus of 2.389762
Right, okay,
before any new initiatives.
perfect, okay. Okay.
Is there any other questions on that before we start discussing new initiatives?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the 25-26 budget to make a comparison to the 24-25 budget. I know that for water and wastewater, the chair mentioned that, can we extrapolate what we could have, what we saved in that 109 days, but I know this much, we did have to pay contractors to do the work that wasn't being done. But also, I think the budget they're pretty good in crystal ball, and I'm just trying to, let me find do you have the number for their 24-25 budget? I think their expenses for 24-25 were down also, which led to a surplus of a little over $1 million. Is that, I'm looking, just give me 1 minute, please. Thank you for your,
To the chair through to his worship. Actually, the deficit that was carried, or the surplus that was carried forward specifically for water and sewer from 2024 into 25-26 was 1.172 million. So you were correct.
yeah, could you just point out again the revenue and the expenses? Do you have the revenue?
I don't, I just have it listed on, underneath the 25-26 budget column, but I can find that information for you.
Yeah, no, I'll find it here. We can go ahead, but again, I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that water and wastewater tend to, well, because they're on a CPI increase every year, so their revenue is going up by consumer price index, inflationary, by the inflationary rate, and then sometimes their expenses, yeah, well, look here, for their expenses for 25-26, they, for 24-25, it was, they budgeted 15.7 million for expenses, but they come in at 14,554,000 for their expenses, which left them with a surplus up one. So there's surpluses carrying forward too. Let's not just get focused on what was, what was not paid out during the 109 days. It's the due diligence of the department or the utility, ensuring that expenses are down, but revenue continues to come in. So I think I'm going to make sure we refer to that tomorrow night.
To the chair through to his worship, I will point out that the surplus just from the audited financial statements as of March 31st, 2025, the only surplus was 96,000. So I don't know what happened in 24, 25, or the year before. And the numbers in the book, I think, are based on maybe the forecast. But when I pulled the audited financial documents, you can see that in the forecast column on the document I might provided to you, the audited surplus is only $96,000
For water and wastewater.
for water and wastewater. That is correct.
And what was it for the city?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Just before Amy goes into the new initiatives, I just want to say that, of course, part of our due diligence as senior administration is to look at the money, the surplus money and the new initiatives, and then look at all the new initiatives, and then kind of create a recommendations to committee and council of what we can afford to spend and what's most important to the city. So Amy will have have the complete list of new initiatives, and also some that we have recommended also for committee and council to consider to fit into that window of surplus, so we can balance our budget.
So, okay, so if I look at our revenue, 99,916,000, expenses at 102,117,000, that's correct? So when I use my trusty calculator, I'm at $2,200,000 over expenses, right? That's our expenses over our revenue. There's a $2 million.
To his chair through to his worship, which are you meaning after the new initiatives are factored in?
Well, okay, just to go back to what Councilor Bernard said, this is under revised total with initiatives.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
So if we factor in all the new initiatives that senior leadership is proposing that we move forward with, when you factor that in, we will end with a surplus of 189,149.
Okay, okay.
Amy, so the ones that senior administration is recommending is the numbers that's in under the new initiatives, the different line items? Is that correct?
To his chair through to Councillor Bernard, that is correct. On the new initiatives tab is all the new initiatives that were presented by all the departments. And the ones that I've indicated, yes, are the ones that we're proposing from senior leadership that we move forward with. But all initiatives that have been proposed by the departments are listed there for your review.
Right, so not going to the new initiatives tab, just staying on this one.
Okay?
When I see like environment sustainability, for example, or fire, like under the new initiatives, those figures were plugged in based on the recommendations of the new initiatives, correct?
Of the proposed ones that we move forward with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're kind of included in the budget when you go to the furthest right.
That is correct.
And that leaves
So-
$102,000 surplus, okay. All right,
Just to repeat what I think Councillor Bernard is asking for myself as well, I think what has been said here is we've got a total list of new initiatives that you as a group or senior leadership has have in their inventory. There's a complete list, and then there's a list, or within that list, senior staff and administration have recommended to this committee what should go into the budget, correct?
That is correct. Thank you, Mr.
And
Chair.
that's exactly what council will see as well, obviously.
That is correct. So there is another page in your document or another tab with the new initiatives. We can go through them one by one if you would like. If you want to review them, I'm happy to go through. I have the detail for each one if you have any questions. Any of the ones that are highlighted green are the ones that the senior leadership is proposing that we move forward with. Obviously, the ones that are highlighted red with no is something that we don't see is worth moving ahead with at this time.
yeah, no, I would say, well, I mean, what I read makes perfect sense. I like what they're recommending, but if you want to go through it, there's not that many.
Deputy Mayor, you're usually never
10.
quiet.
I went through the new initiatives. I didn't really have a lot of questions. I seem to accept staff's recommendations on the ones that we should support and the ones we shouldn't support. But if we want to further delve into them, I'm open to whatever committee wants to do.
Mr. Chair, if we look at some of the new initiatives, I think that, there's some rewording that we can do
Push that down.
in new initiative description.
Thank you.
And the reason I say that, because we just went through the capital budget, and, we're going pretty strong on some departments on their initiatives. And I always say you should build a house before you move into it, rather than move into something and then build it. So I'm just saying that my point here is that some of the wording, could send out a message that might be a little mixed up or not aligned with what we're trying to do here. Is that we're trying to put up new infrastructure, but that new infrastructure requires it to be built first. And I think Councillor Bernard, and I know the deputy has said it many times when we talked about this, is that, when we start looking at new firefighters or new personnel, well, let's wait until we build what we need to accommodate them and to put them, that will become part of they will become part of the calculus or part of the framework of the service we're trying to offer. So I don't know how you do it. Maybe it requires some discussions with the CAO and yourself and some managers, but I think that overall, agreeing with the deputy and also Councillor Bernard, is that, it's laid out quite easy to understand, but
Yeah, it's very
it's
good to
just,
understand.
it's just the wording. I just want to make sure that fire services, police services, our public works services, our park services, parks, recreation services, you know, we're doing the work and we're going to fulfill what we've been elected to do, and that is to provide a safe and stable and secure community to live in, and I think we're doing that. Again, I just want to leave it with the chair and the other members of how we want to go forward.
No, and if I may.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Councillor Bernard, go ahead, and then CAO.
No, and I agree with His Worship 100%. I think there's always a first. But I do think if you look at our neighbours over in Halifax, I mean, they moved a little quick and they end up having to close a station and taxes go up. And I think we've been moving along here, living within our means and providing a good service. For 6 officers now, before we were to build a new fire station, I think it's a little premature. That's close to $1 million in salary, which I don't see us having here now. So I agree 100%. I think we move ahead with the plan that's in place. We build our station, and because I think that's going to probably take 2 years before it's completed, so we can review this within the next year. So.
CAO?
Thank you, Chair. And, you know, I would kind of echo those comments, but, you know, the reality is that there was a lot of asks for new initiatives. We can only afford so much, right? You know, the current economic stability in the world and in Canada, you know, there's a lot of unpredictability in the times ahead. So we want to make sure we're responsible in how we're budgeting and certainly recognizing the importance of public safety too. And I don't think anything that we're not recommending to move forward is any slight on the importance of public safety. But we do have a plan and invested capital money to build a new fire station. I think a lot of moving forward is about timing and how we spend our money effectively. Because the needs across the city are vast. You can see by our operating budget, our growth is outpacing our revenues. We can't lose sight of that, so we have to spend our money wisely, and we have to do it so that our city grows in all areas for service delivery, not just in certain areas. And so I think the recommendations from senior management are responsible in the fact that every department is benefiting from new initiatives, but all our money is not going in one area.
All right, Councillor Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question on the new initiatives that I agree with everything I'm reading here. It's just, I have to question the last one on the bylaw enforcement manager, which it says here presented to Council March the 10th, and I did see it in the minutes. I'm just questioning, from what I read, it was a bylaw enforcement manager to supervise what looked like 2 people. And I'm wondering if we really need that. One bylaw officer is in planning and one is in police. And do we need a manager to hire those two, to look after those 2 people? That's what I'm wondering.
I could speak to that first if you want. It's under my committee, if you want.
Pardon me?
I could answer a few things on that just because it came
Sure.
through my committee before we turn it over to Mike.
Sure.
Because I think you weren't there that day, were you? You were away on business, so you didn't hear the whole discussion.
Probably not, no.
Yeah. So right now we have, in our budget, we have 2 bylaw officers. One falls under police and one falls under planning and heritage. And we lost the one from planning and heritage earlier this summer. And then it opened up that discussion on, you know, we have all these bylaws across all departments, and we seem to only focus on the police bylaws and then the planning bylaws. Then we have all these other ones that are intermingled. So the thought around this was doing what a lot of other municipalities do, and they actually have a bylaw enforcement department. Often it falls under the Planning and Heritage Department, for lack of a better place to put it. And so therefore, if a resident had a concern with a bylaw that wasn't being followed, they could go right to this department, and then that information would disseminate out to the appropriate person. The enforcement manager would be a working manager, similar to the manager of Planning and Heritage, David Gundrum. And so we saw this as a streamlined process to actually be more efficient. And so because we already have 2 positions already budgeted that have been there for a while, the only increase to the budget would be to then bring in somebody that would be the manager. And so that's kind of why we thought it was necessary, because right now, we're not able to enforce the bylaws we have, because we don't have the staff to do it. So that's kind of where it went.
Having said that, Deputy, I'm just wondering, if we don't have the staff to do it and we can't enforce it, what's a manager going to do? 'Cause my
Well,
understanding was what I read, the manager was going to manage those other two
right.
two
Well,
officers.
right now, we don't even have the position filled in the Planning and Heritage for that bylaw. So we have to fill the 2 positions. We have an outgoing bylaw officer under police that's probably retiring soon. So we have an entire really department to create. So you would hire the 2 officers that are already budgeted for, and then you would also then hire the manager, and in hopes that these 3 could bring this group together, this department, and actually start enforcing the bylaws that we have. Best
But that-
practice, you can see it in other municipalities, but I'm going to turn it over to Mike, if maybe he could have a better
Okay.
explain on it too. Thanks, Councilor Bernard.
Thanks, Deputy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Deputy. To Councillor Bernard, I think the deputy explained things quite well. The only thing I would maybe add is that really the overall idea here is to consolidate all of our services from a customer service perspective into one team, so that we're more resilient moving into the future. But that would also be inclusive of, some contract management that we currently have. So that manager position, yes, would be a working manager, also providing some supervisory services with those other staff members, but also contract management. So there's a variety of duties. That's kind of where we've ended up here, but this is kind of the first step into growing a larger team so that we're able to have resilient and sustainable bylaw services for the city.
So when you say working manager, you mean he's also a bylaw officer?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. And my last question, I guess, is, at least it's starting to sound like it's making some sense. I know we've really improved the planning department with I think we have now 5 managers? I think, Deputy, is that correct? 4?
Yeah, we have heritage, planning.
But it can't, my point is,
policy.
it can't fall under one of them, I guess. Because we used to have 1 manager, and I know we've grown, the city's grown, we have 4, but was it ever looked at, the possibility of putting on a current manager?
I think it was looked at, but because this is such a skill set that, looking at the way other municipalities set it up and the current structure, we're already struggling with we'd already be struggling with the admin support that would go with this other department. So I see this as a standalone because they're also going to look after the crossing guards and the
STR.
commissionaires,
Parking meter personnel.
parking meters. So,
Yeah.
because right now they don't really have a home to fall under, so this would put everything into one. And right now, our current bylaw officer who works under police, oftentimes, there's so many other bylaws that can't be enforced because we're focusing on those police bylaws. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Anyhow.
Deputy, if I could just add to that, it came up under Human Resources Standing Committee meeting on March 3rd. And when you look at the STR, I think over the last year since the departure of Elizabeth Chestnut, the province has been doing the STR enforcement. And that in itself is especially because of it requires inspections, working with Shane Jones, is it? Who's our manager of inspections? Shane Jones. So there's I think this is, I think, just like Councillor Bernard, I had some issues about a manager for two people, but it's a working manager, but there's a lot in it. Like, if you look at that unsightly, dangerous and hazardous bylaw, that's, we've been changing that all the time, and, we have some unsightly premises that are still standing that we're trying to deal with. So I think this is probably the best way to go. And again, I don't like to add layers to it, but I'm supporting it. And again, I just want to get back to we have to be, get the message out there that, and the CAO, who was the former chief of police, he came to our council a couple of times with a number of new officers. Now, he didn't get them, but that didn't make our community less safe. I think he was looking at how to fortify different parts, different areas of his mandate. This is the same thing with what we're doing with fire, because when we were told that they would go out to Station 2, well, there's some issues here. The arbitrator made it very clear that these are 24-hour shifts. If we start splitting up those shifts, then we're going to have grievances. And, to go back to the CAO, he's always said, we're in the business of building relationships. So that's what we have. That's what I want to get from this, is that, look, we're building a relationship by building the structure first, and then looking at what we need to do, or what we need to accommodate going forward. And just, Councillor Bernard, you mentioned Halifax. I think it was St. John that ended up closing one of their stations because the cost to the city budget. I think the city of Halifax are having some challenges with their budget because of protective and emergency services demand. So very important in the community, but, there's, as I said, Amy, there's public works, there's parks and recreation, and water and wastewater. Like, that's a utility. We have to make sure that we keep our lead as being the best tasting water in North America. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you, John. Thank you very much, John.
just to stay with the bylaw enforcement officer in anticipation, there could be a similar discussion at council, maybe. And CAO, I think you have a pretty strong, or, an opinion on this, or support of it, and do you want to just share that, perhaps?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Certainly, I can tell you, I think we can all appreciate the importance of having a strong bylaw capacity. I know when I did my one-on-ones with the councillors, all of them, individually, all of you echoed the importance of building a strong service delivery when it comes to bylaw enforcement and building that capacity. And so, certainly took that to heart, and this is part of putting the building blocks in place to build our capacity to lead our bylaw enforcement into the future. A number of you touched on what they will cover. But I would just add to that there will also be the person that will have the continuity of the bylaw issues across the municipality, and the one to also keep their eye on the pulse of the issues, and to make sure that the bylaws are kept up to date, because we've gone through a number of revisions over the last number of years where we fell short on our bylaws. They're outdated. So we need a manager, someone with the abilities and some flexible time to make sure that some of the frustration we experienced over the last number of years can be alleviated, because it's just pressure points that we don't need, and that can be alleviated if we just build this capacity.
Councillor Bernard?
Thank you, CAO. And I only see one side of it. I see more of the police bylaw with properties that need to be cleaned up and so on. So You know what, if you feel in your capacity that it's, the money's well worth it, then I'm good with it. I just need, I never heard, like Deputy Mayor said, I wasn't at the conversation, so I didn't get to hear the full exposure of what the need was. But anyway, moving forward, it sounds like it's a need and it will make a difference. So thank you for that. Thank you, Deputy.
Yeah, just, or go ahead, CO.
Chair, yes, and if I could also just touch on the other comments about, building our capacity in things like fire service. And I think we all recognize that, as a municipality, we want to build our capacity in fire services there, but we have to do it in a way that's sustainable. And so we have to do it in a time that's, that makes sense, a time frame that makes sense for us, because we do not want to fall into the same traps that other municipalities have and try to be too aggressive in this and not being able to sustain it, or do it with outcomes like increased taxes because of increases in these types of services. I think we're all committed to moving it forward, but it's about timing.
No, as Chair of Finance, I certainly support your comments and advice on that. And as a councillor who represents a northern part of the city in Ward 7, I mean, West Riley is, pretty safe to say it's going to land in that part of the city. But I think it's important that we get physical plant looked after first, and the staffing piece is a discussion for post-project. So, and then just for clarification, back to the bylaw thing, is an example of contract management that you're referring to, that would be an example of like the Humane Society contract? Is that an example of, you talked about contract management or
That's a good case.
commissionaires and that's falls under that bucket, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's all part of a restructuring of our bylaws to consolidate them.
Okay, anything else to beat around on new initiatives?
Yeah, no, I do.
Mayor Brown?
Again, just going back to DH priority, so that's department head, correct? And the first one, number one for fire protection services is this, recruitment. I think that a discussion needs to be had with the manager or the department head that, we're going forward, but we're right now building the house before we move in. And secondly, I do want to say, fully support increase, I think that's still there in the budget, increase in volunteer FF firefighters recruitment and retention benefits. Amy, I don't know if you you probably know that the volunteer firefighters that we have in this city, both in District 1 and District 2, are very proud of the work that they do for this city, and I think that's a good spend of money, because you want to bring in volunteers and show them the benefits of being a person that gives service, honorary service to your community, but also there has to be something in terms of a small stipend or whatever that provides some monetary return. So fully agree with that, and looks good. Green light to go ahead, and we'll get the detail budget shortly or before midnight. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bernard.
Thank you. I just want to make a reference to the CAO's last comments there, and I appreciate them. That they're going to, will build up their building blocks such as fire and so on in a sustainable manner, and I guess that's my determination for live within our means. I find that our provincial grants go up every year, our tax assessments go up every year, so by building out sustainability, I appreciate that. That's to me living within our means. We continue to grow as the revenue comes in to allow us, so we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. So, thank you. And if you're wrapping up, Mr. Chair, I would like to say thank you. I mean, I think Amy did another fantastic job tonight.
Thank you, Amy.
So,
Thank
and
you
the
very
team, I
much.
should say all the team, really. It's everybody, so
And could I just say one more point
I
there,
think
Mr.
so,
Chair?
yeah.
Mr. Chair, could I? Amy, did you mention that the provincial return is going up from 59 or 60 cents to 62 cents? What was it? 63. Could you just,
To the chair through to his worship, it's going up from 63 to 65.
so I want to give honorable mention to Councillor Bernard because he is the person that did make amends or did make that crucial visit down to the Shaw Building and brought back this deal. Hopefully he'll have to go back down because is this just for this year and then what do we go back to next year? I think that's where I'm concerned. When we were both first elected to council back in 2000, back then it was 66 cents. We used to call it the 34-cent holdback because they'd never give us the whole 34 cents. Then it reduced and reduced, and now we're getting it back up. So again, Councillor Bernard, he initiated it last year, and it locked into place, and now hopefully we can secure it for future years to come.
No, thank you, Your Worship, and yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. This agreement is in place, and it's not going to decrease. If anything, it'll increase. So, thank you.
How are we doing it? Everybody good? Motion to adjourn. Thank you again, Amy, thank you, and Isaac and the team, CAO. I know it's been, I know it's been a slug, and, Amy, you've been thrown to the, kind of the wolves, but, you're doing a good job.
No, but it's been going, it's been going pretty smooth, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, no.
Pretty smooth, so I like that.
I didn't mean that in a, maybe the way it sounded, but I mean, short term, you come in just, I don't know, a month, right in the middle of things, so, anyway, it's great, yeah. Thank you, motion adjourned.
Thanks to Nancy for the great
Thank you,
sandwiches.
thank you.
Thank you.